question that's gonna. I do have my. I'm not. I'm not just a parent without not wearing a that. I do got my pants on, but as you learn in this video, you can say, "Is this fool actually hopping up on YouTube with his shirt off?" And then I wanna actually say that I wanna return that and think of how absurd we might actually be in this modern reality. So I just made this recent video talking about about how we need to be getting more natural and stuff like that. And so like I'm not trying to be obscene or crude or gross, but I'm a man, and so I have my pants on, but I do have my shirt off, and so I just wanted to put my money where my mouth is in that video, and saying that we need to become more natural. And so, in a certain sense, we're getting to the point where it looks that crazy for a man not to be wearing a t-shirt. But I want to say, is that not a little bit absurd in the first place that it is somehow egregious to appear in our natural, the way that we naturally are as human beings, where I'm not bearing anything that would be saved for a yet more for a special occasion. But that's actually a part of modesty that I do want to say, that saving a part of ourselves for a specific for something that's truly that is so for something that is stimulating. There's something about saving ourselves, where I think that actually it's been said that sometimes it's been understood that people can be more stimulated by clothes that is suggestive, rather than just the complete nudity. And because for one, it leaves something to the imagination, but I think really as human beings, there is even as we become natural and part of nature, there is still something of propriety, if not chastity and decency. So I don't want to get away from that, but I just want to be putting my money where my mouth is and say that just taking gradual steps to become more and more natural. And I even talked about even getting back to being hippies again. And so this should be a step in that direction. And I do think that for all the flack that hippies have gotten over time, stuff wasn't about nothing because like they all became like status quo and like part of the machine after that movement. But I beg to differ that they did the exact appropriate thing in that setting. Like at that time, the stuff that was going on in that period, wherever a person fall on the side of status quo, not status quo, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and we find ourselves where we find ourselves. But for the people who actually did make that movement or got to enjoy that movement of being more natural and human, I think that was the exact appropriate thing to do at that time, and I think that's still the exact appropriate thing to do, is to become more natural and more humane and to be more human. But that doesn't mean no holds barred. Cause like there's still, I had mentioned like even like with curating like hair, letting the hair grow, there's still propriety. Even I think we were meant to exist with propriety in nature as human beings. And that's part of decency, but we can actually go, so there's like maybe a spectrum of that, where there would be like complete like indecency on one hand, and then the other hand would be like prudishness to the point where it's not healthy, it's antithetical to life. So both prudishness and indecency can lead to being antithetical, but we're just taking very gentle steps to get more and more back to being as natural and as harmonic with nature and one another as we can be. And I think some of that is embracing what we naturally are as the most beautiful that we can be is the closest to how we are fashioned in nature and in the likeness of nature. So I wanted to say with that, because I'm somewhat bold, but I don't want to seem like I'm off my rocker, even though I got a pretty great rocker over there. I would argue that rocker that I got over there might be one of the top rockers that is available, because I got it from my grandparents. And I think they got it from like a fancy department store when they got married, like in the 40s or something. I think it was that, what was that? I can't remember, but it was like my family's from the Midwest, and they had got it from a very like upscale department store that they had to send away from in the Chicago area, and as it were, I just had to I just did something. I sent away for something in the Chicago area recently, but not as high end as that, so maybe if your first step in being on your feet is get something from the Chicago area. I'm being off my rocker right now, but all I meant to say is that it's just putting my money where my mouth is with that video. But then I wanted to appear with something different, which is like maybe a different spin in an entirely different subject. But as I began this video, you might have heard a dog barking. It's a little dog, but the little ones are the ones that got heart. But it inspired me to make a video because I made a reference in another video that it's difficult living next to people that keep animals. Where my people come from in Africa, my father, they don't look at domesticated animals, or at least dogs, the same way that humans do. They would have dogs, like they love dogs, and they work with dogs, but they had dogs like outside the house. They didn't have dogs in and among them as though they were as though they were as they didn't dwell in they didn't have dogs in their dwelling space. And what I want to say is that I think that a lot of that might be cultural, because I noticed that I live in a part of the Midwest, and then just maybe America in general. A lot of people really love dogs in America, but particularly in where I am in the Midwest. And I think some of that might have to, there's like maybe some history with that, both in the United States and going back to Europe, that I don't completely understand all of that. But I just know that the relationship between people and dogs is very, very profound. But I just personally grew up without, my parents didn't allow me to have pets. And otherwise I probably would have when I was young. But I grew up with different instincts around dogs, even not having grown up entirely in Africa, but or hardly at all in Africa, but just I was somewhat acculturated to my African roots, just being off of my father alone. Because when you grow up under someone like I did with my father, my father can be a little bit overbearing in his way, and he's a very forceful talking about violence about dogs, but equally, if not more, about probably more so human beings are very violent, and then and I think dogs are too, and it sometimes I said in another video, the way you really feel about someone, you can't help but that's gonna come across, and like a lot of how your nature is being right now, it's gonna come out. So like I experienced the barking of that dog as something violent, even as small as the dog is, but just the um the 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 it's kind of like it is. So I talk about like different grades of like behavior, and in the from the Eastern perspective as being characterized as the tendency towards motion, the tendency towards self-interest, and the tendency towards recognition of self and other as being three propensities that fashion a lot of experience, but also can preponderate in different beings. And so sometimes when I experience like a dog barking like that, it's somewhat, it's like, it's like selfish in a way, because it's like, it's like an exertion of, on whatever level, it's like exerting the will over another thing or another person when it's barking like that. And I think that would really constitute a lot of the innate tendency of a dog. And then we as human beings, and probably all beings, have our own tendencies that are equally challenging for other beings. If we're being honest, maybe a lot of our goings on as humans can be disrupted to animals on very sensitive levels. You think about how sensitive an animal might be, like a bird or something. The way that they can sense the new dawn long before we can as humans. The way that they can communicate, the way that they're also they're so gentle yet like fine-tuned, that you can appreciate that they probably experience a lot of things, and you can imagine how annoying a lot of things can be, the maybe like stuff that like music that your family members like, when you're more or less subjected to it and you can't get away from them or that music. Just all the different things, how obnoxious something very simple can be. It might be the same with animals, where different animals about us, like squirrels, birds, they might be really, what we do might be really obnoxious to them on different levels. But what I wanted to say is that in being big, so I actually want to do this video about a deeper message and a serious message about suffering. Now, you can, I've suffered through a lot of different things and still suffered. So I think I lived at home. I had lived independently at brief times, in my adulthood, but more so I was living with family in small quarters, and what comes with that, and then not having a lot of means in my life. Sometimes I might have had more cash I might have had more income coming in, but as far as real means, what do you own? What assets do you have? What potential do you have to make decisions, and who has the final say in the decisions that you make? And how do things benefit you when you're sleeping? How are you engaging with other people, and what are the real consequences of your social engagements, and are those significant? That's some of the finer, deeper aspects of wealth and really having. So I just wanted to say that sometimes sometimes income doesn't really reflect what our real wealth and situation is. So I meant to say that, I've done a lot of suffering over time, but then even stepping up into independence, with getting my own apartment last fall, and then just recently getting a beater to beat around town in. That's really significant, and those are big steps. Yeah, we don't get away from suffering that easily, because I can be in my own apartment. I got nice wood floors, open space. I can do music a lot of time. I have somewhat of flexibility working with independent work. But whatever you do or don't do, you can find yourself in a position where you're getting pressed by something, and it can be grating or painful on different levels, and sometimes you really just can't get away from it, and that's when you really appreciate what suffering is. I'm doing all right now, but I can be suffering. That dog next door, that can really start to work a person. And then that's me, but I would imagine even people who are on far higher or lower levels, generally, and grossly speaking, superficially speaking, can experience suffering at it's kind of similar. Like a lot of people might, you might think like you're a badass when you're with your friends, and you would do this and that if this and that happened, and you even go to this and that place and you practice doing this and that. But that's when you have the ups, that's when you have the initiative. And if we know anything, there's this a YouTuber, Cole YouTuber, named the Game Spitter, and he says that ball, it gets passed back and forth. That ball of suffering, that ball of being on the other end of something hot, it goes back and forth. And so it's liable to always go back and forth. However long you had it or didn't have it, it goes back and forth. So we can find ourselves, I all meant to say is like being tough is one thing when we have the ups, but inevitably when we're pressed, or when we don't have any more room to maneuver, and we're on the subject of something. It's way different, but it can be something very simple as getting pressed by a dog barking incessantly. But what I want to say is that, and this is the greater message of this video, and as an inspiration, is that the author, Arthur Avalon, says that one of the keys to freedom is so that suffering. I don't think we're getting away from that suffering, and we can have like different levels of success, but it's been reasoned by many great faiths around the world that in this life at least, we're not getting past that suffering once and for all clean, and yet still being in this life. So it's gonna ebb and flow, and it's gonna do what you can do what you do and make maneuvers, but it's gonna catch up to you at some point. And when it starts to press you, a lot of times you don't have much left but to grin and bear and think of Queen and Country as some to rock with Arthur Avalon being a knight from England. I think that's an old saying from like England. It's like when you're getting pressed up against something, but yet you're serving the crown. You have nothing to do but to grin and bear and think of Queen and Country. But to that end, and what he meant as even in that sense, but as a key to freedom, is that Arthur Avalon says that when in pain and when in pleasure, identify with the greater experience. So what that means is that as I'm getting pressed by that dog or what circumstance for it come and go, like, like right now that the owner of that dog actually just took them particular suffering is now to a low a little bit. I still have some of the aftertaste or the the hangover of like having got pressed by that, and it is stressful, but at least that low for the moment. And I might at some point get entirely or largely away from that particular influence of getting pressed. But yet again, I will find myself getting pressed at some point where I cannot maneuver anymore, and I have to sit with something, and it's not fun. But in that, the only escape from that, and the only real hope, the only real redemption in that, when you're getting pressed up like that, is to understand that there are other people going through the same thing and worse. And to really, and we are always all connected one to each other. We have a unique connection to each person in being and locus in the universe. Locus being like a center of agency and feeling. Which is beyond infinite, but each one has a unique relationship to us, and that's a lot of our orientation and who we are, and the different circumstances and blessings that come about for us. But yet we also are part of a greater whole. And so we always have that connection to unique beings, but also the greater whole. And so when going through pain that cannot be sidestepped, evaded, or you can't get around that pain. The only thing you have left at that point is to embrace that you are part of a greater whole, and there's also suffering in that whole, and to take identity, and there's a word called solidarity. That's like when you go like that's solidarity right there. And just to feel that you're part of a greater picture, and this that you're going through, at one day it can if you take upright steps, it can actually be what is your joy. I was explaining that to some young people today, that actually our most painful experiences are actually the real force of joy. I mentioned about having like experiences in faith settings that were hard to be tactful about. And as you engage with faith, praise, higher worship or higher power, I would say, and maybe someone could rock with me, that when you actually taste real joy, approaching, if not surpassing, what's called ecstasy, like you can imagine like some blues players, like some real like blues players. That's like that like that what they would have had to go through to be able to sing the blues like that. But then also what that vibe is like when you're catching those blues vibes, and maybe you're around some cool people or someone attracted to you. What that feels like catching those kind of blues vibes, but also what those are made out of and what that's talking about. So that's what I'm saying with this this embracing suffering, not to play with it, not to act like it's easy, not to ever play with it, and respect it. But when it does come upon you, which I think it will come upon all of us frequently and constantly as long as we're alive, just to remember that there's other people going through too, and to feel that connection with the bigger us, and know that at one point this is gonna amount to your strength and your future joy, both joy for you and then joy for the way that you help other people come out of stuff. You know, I've came across some cool ideas in books. The word philosophy, I think it means like loving wisdom is what philosophy means. And so I think I've really enjoyed, like, I just enjoy original thoughts, and like,